Life can beat you down, okay.
Hey you guys, we did it. We made it. We survived 2023. Sitting here on the brink of 2024. I'm in a funny hotel in Aspen, Colorado with a phone propped on a coffee cup and an ice bucket, here to introduce this beautiful series put together by VNN and Brittany Hopper. They did a fabulous job recapping a very wild year that took us from ski trial in Utah, Gwyneth Paltrow versus Terry Richards. I think we all had a lot of fun with that. To, Trump indictments in New York, to walking through Ghislaine Maxwell's hideaway house in Manchester by the Sea, and now bouncing around various corners of America, covering the campaign trail in a twist I didn't see coming, and maybe a lot of you didn't either. So thank you for all your support and continued engagement and enthusiasm. I wish you all a happy new year and can't wait to see you back here in 2024.
They say we so gone when we say we winning. We gotta give thanks to the thanks we're giving. And if all else fails,
welcome to our special show on VNN. I'm Brittany Hopper, and there's nowhere I'd rather be than right here with you on this New Year's Eve. We have collaborated with Jessica Reed Krause. She's known for her brilliant social media work during Oscar-nominated actor Johnny Depp's trial with Amber Heard. Jessica has gained global popularity with her quick wit, genius writing, and passion for Hollywood gossip. Jessica started House Inhabit, where pop culture deep dives with quality conspiracy theories, lifestyle highlights, and trending water cooler gossip. House Inhabit is now a top 10 Substack globally, reaching millions of people, basically telling it how it is. So let's go down a fun rabbit hole tonight. January 2023 started off with a bang with the highly anticipated interview of Ghislaine Maxwell. The uber controversial Epstein confidant gave a prison interview, her very first, and let's just say the answers left Jessica and all of us asking for more questions.
Hello, good evening, and welcome to a special edition of Jeremy Carl Live, Ghislaine Behind Bars. Now, she really is the most notorious female prison inmate on the planet. And tonight, Ghislaine Maxwell is seen and heard for the very first time in jail.
I feel completely divorced from the person that people reference and talk about.
Maxwell makes startling confessions about her infamous relationship with Jeffrey Epstein.
I honestly wish I'd never met him.
And she claims the notorious photo of her with Prince Andrew and Epstein victim Virginia Giuffre is a setup.
It's a fake. I don't believe that. I don't believe it's real for a second. In fact, I'm sure it's not.
But she doesn't have a single word of apology for her victims.
I say that Epstein died and they should take their disappointment and upset out on the authorities that allowed that to happen.
Who is this woman, and what have they done with the real Ghislaine? At first glance, she resembles what we saw in the trial, save for the flood of gray coming back on her roots. But her tone, mumbling and coarse, sounded nothing like the lady who addressed the court with a voice slick as glass and perfectly enunciated remarks directed at the victims she refused to look in the eye. Everything we've heard and read about her as this dazzling, overly charismatic presence at the center of these high society settings, it was entirely voided here. The Oxford manners, gone. The eloquence, shot. Her confidence, dissolved. And the seductive allure mentioned most often as her trademark trait, tough to imagine when confronted with this fidgety, disconnected, and aloof woman we saw on screen. She was awkward and struggling to string basic words together. Everything from the pixelated garden party backdrop to her stumbling responses and claims of a past banking gig was far weirder than expected. In our fast-paced lives, finding enough time for self-care and exercise can be a real struggle, and even the best diets and exercise routines sometimes need a little extra support, especially as our metabolism changes with age. That's where Meta Radiance by Holistic Goddess steps in. Combining simple yet powerful spices, Meta Radiance boosts your metabolism with cinnamon, provides sustained energy with garlic, aids in calorie burning with cayenne pepper, and promotes smoother digestion with cardamom. Enhanced with black pepper for better absorption, Meta Radiance supports a naturally youthful metabolism without the jitters. Choose Meta Radiance for an energized start to your day and to naturally support your body's metabolism. Visit holisticgoddess.com/house today and use code HOUSE for 10% off. Embrace the natural path to wellness with Meta Radiance. Jessica made her name covering celebrity cases and celebrity trials, so it's not hard to understand why so many would believe that Jessica would jump at the opportunity to cover any case or trial that captured the attention of the globe. But those folks would be wrong, especially when it comes to covering true crime. Jessica has made it clear that true crime isn't her forte. She prefers cultural critiques with salacious side notes and angles that allow an injection of gossip and dark humor. Murder is a different beast. It leaves no room for any of that. The details uncovered are heavy, they are dark, and hard to shake off. After Gabby Petito case, Jessica swore she would never track an active investigation again. That kind of coverage takes its toll. During those few weeks, Jessica struggled to sleep. She was frantically updating and posing new theories and conspiracies as they sprang, but fretting over every detail shared. When she did sleep, she had nightmares and weird paranoia. She was convinced she was being followed on dark drives home from the grocery store, or that something, God forbid, awful would happen to her family whenever they were apart. So you can imagine how compelling the murders in a small college town in Idaho had to be to get Jessica to drop everything and head to Moscow, Idaho in January. Joining us to talk about this case, the manhunt, and the aftermath in this criminal defense attorney, Lou Shapiro. Lou, how are you today?
All right, good to be back with you, Brittany.
Great to see you again. Lou, I mean, this is a really complicated case, and I know it took a while to even find the suspect. Talk to me a little bit about this gruesome trial.
Well, this is about as ugly as it gets when we're talking about murder cases like this. It's a capital case as well. The death penalty is on the line. It's a situation where you have innocent college students hoping to go through a normal college life, have experiences, friendships, and memories. And it's just completely turned upside down by a monstrosity. They were murdered. It's a cold blood murder type situation. No one understands the motive for this.
Right.
The suspect that's been arrested, they did trace a cell phone to the scene. They traced DNA to the scene. He had made a lot of suspicious moves shortly after when the murders occurred, include turning off his cell phone, which the prosecution is saying was done in a way to evade the situation. Defense claims that there's an alibi, but that has yet to be disclosed who, what, when, and so forth. And it's just a horrific situation for everybody involved, including, and of course, the family members of the victims.
I mean, it's horrific, as you said. You and I are both parents, and you know, you send your children to college in hopes of having some of the best 4, in my case, 5 years of the best time of their lives. This, it's the unimaginable. Now, my question to you, we know currently in the news, this just came out within the last couple of days, they're wanting to demolish this house that these gruesome murders happened in. Why, my question, why do they want to demolish it? And the families are asking for them to wait until after the trial. Can you kind of explain what is going on here from a criminal defense attorney point of view, please?
Sure. So the family is looking at it from a forensic point of view. The family is concerned that the demolishing of the house might be one point that the defense can argue a trial and say the most important piece of evidence is no longer here, the actual crime scene. You probably want to code the crime scene. You want to see the rooms. You want to see the blood spatter. You want to see the evidence. But that has been destroyed. Why has that been destroyed? What is the government trying to keep from everyone in terms of doing that? Now, it's a Hail Mary type argument, but as we've seen in many criminal cases over the years, you can never be too confident, no matter how strong of evidence you have. Even if you have the DNA of the suspect at the scene, that doesn't mean you're going to get a conviction, because it is proof beyond a reasonable doubt. And the family of the victims don't want there to be any possible doubt left or arguments to the defense that they could say, look, the government destroyed evidence, there's a reason for it. So that's where the family is coming from. And the school's coming from a different angle. And the school is saying, look, this has been over a year now, and just the looking at this house is a constant reminder to everyone in the community of the tragedy that happened here.
Right.
And we all somehow want to move on and heal from it. And to begin the healing process, we need to demolish this house because it serves no good. And that's where the competing interests are.
Right, right. Very well said. So the trial starts this summer, 2024. Any predictions on, I mean, he's up for the death penalty, the suspect, right? In Idaho, they have the death penalty, right?
Right. He's up for the death penalty. And whenever you have a death case, the defense has to play very carefully in terms of how they're going to strategize defending the case. Sometimes, if the evidence is so clear-cut that the person is guilty of it, then the defense won't spend a long time in that first phase, the trial phase, the evidentiary phase, and trying to challenge the evidence. They'll spend more time in the second phase, called the penalty phase, in terms of trying to provide expert testimony about the mental health issues of the defendant, the idea that there is a likelihood of rehabilitation, why the person should get what's called LWOP, life without parole, versus the death penalty. But for the defense, if the evidence is there and there's a conviction against the defendant in this kind of case under these horrific facts, it's going to be a very challenging situation for the defense attorneys to try to overcome the death penalty.
Right, right. I mean, hopefully he does get the death penalty. That's just my 2 cents. I'm going to go back and ask you the same question, but just differently, just so we have some things to work with regarding the house being demolished. So let me just go back and say, so Lou, why, in your opinion, do you think so many people were glued to the television when this was unfolding and just merely fascinated with this crime?
Well, because we have a case that's still pending right now. The trial hasn't happened yet. So people are watching this saying, how can you destroy perhaps one of the most important pieces of evidence here? This is where the crime scene happened. Perhaps the jurors will want to visit the crime scene. But if we're demolishing the house, there's no crime scene to visit.
Right. And
So
we're talking about right now. Hold on, because that horn, let's start over. So Lou, why do you think so many people are glued to their televisions during this whole murder scene that was happening? And now coming back within the last couple of days, we're hearing about this house potentially being demolished. Why are so many of us so invested in this particular crime and the trial that's upcoming in 2024, summer of 2024?
Well, look, the crime is one of the most disturbing, offensive, hideous things that we've seen in quite a while. I mean, you have innocent students minding their own business, living a law-abiding life, just trying to get through school, to find themselves just cold-blooded murderers. It's unthinkable what happened in this situation. So, on the other side of it, people are wondering, why did this happen? Right. What would possess somebody to do something like this? Do they know these people? It doesn't seem like there was any real connection that's been made or motive. Why the defendant who was arrested in this case would have done something like this? And I think that's where the defense is going to be going a little bit. Why would he do this? What's their motive? And of course, they claim that they have an alibi, which is yet to be disclosed. But that will be very interesting as well.
Right, right. Okay, Lou, thank you so much. Happy New Year to you. Happy 2024. Healthy, happy New Year.
Yes. Yeah. Happy New Year as well. And yeah, if you could remember, just have someone send me that clip so I'll tag us both on it. Look good.
Sure thing.
Okay.
Bye, Lou.
All right, cool, Brittany. Good seeing you.
Same. They say April showers bring May flowers, but April of this year brought another spectacle almost as anticipated as the coming of spring. a celebrity trial. The Gwyneth Paltrow trial wasn't what we have come to expect from celebrity trials. There was no murder, no sex, no drugs, and of course, no rock and roll. And yet the country was still fixated on the trial, and Jessica decided she couldn't just watch this trial on TV. She needed to be there in person to witness the spectacle and take in Park City, Utah, winter playground of the rich. What the Gwyneth Paltrow showed with its spiked trial ratings is that we still have an insatiable fascination with celebrities, even though we keep insisting that their role in current society is dead. It's a fascination that intensifies with trial. There is something undeniably compelling about seeing the rich and famous leveled by legal woes, watching carefully crafted public images shattered by vulnerabilities in court. To some degree, I suppose we all appreciate a stripped-down version of any polished facade. This fascination with celebrity trials is nothing new, but amplified in recent years thanks to the rise of social media's 24-hour news cycles. Now that we can track them in real time with every detail scrutinized and analyzed by self-professed pundits and armchair experts alike. And yet, even as we seek to consume every bit of information we can squeeze out of these cases, it also evokes an underlying sense of unease over how invested we are in the misfortunes of others, particularly those who come from privilege and success. Why is it so amusing to see famous people compromised? Media outlets have asked if it's ethical to turn a trial into a spectacle for our own entertainment. Well, of course it is. Trial is theater, and we are innately a captive audience, forever awaiting the next show. I know I prefer celeb trials over any other form of reality TV. And now a message from our sponsor, the Wellness Company. Everyone knows the next medical crisis is just around the corner, whether it comes in the form of a pandemic or something much more mundane like a tick bite. You and your family need to be prepared, and that's where the Wellness Company comes in. The Wellness Company and their doctors are medical professionals that you can trust, and their new medical emergency kits are the gold standard when it comes to keeping you safe and healthy. Be ready for anything. This medical emergency kit contains an assortment of life-saving medications, including ivermectin and Z-Pak. The medical emergency kit provides a guidebook to aid in the safe use of all of these life-saving medications, from anthrax to tick bites to COVID, and even to a bioweapon like the plague. The Wellness Company's medical emergency kit is exactly what you need to have on hand to be prepared. Rest assured, knowing that you have emergency antibiotics, antivirals, and antiparasitics on hand to help keep you and your family safe. Go to twc.health/headlines today and order. That's twc.health/headlines today and order. In June, Jessica launched a 20-question series with one of the most iconic women of the 21st century, Sarah Ferguson, the Duchess of York. Jessica, like so many of us, has always been drawn to strong-minded women with vibrant personalities. Her childhood idols were typically these robust kinds of characters with defining grit and unique charisma. Jessica liked women who stood out from the crowd, a trait filed under things we don't outgrow. Naturally, Sarah Ferguson was one of her earliest idols. Jessica's lifelong penchant for royal musings started early, thanks to a kindergarten teacher who introduced her to British magazines. Jessica remembered flipping through the pages and finding a fiery red-headed duchess to be the most fascinating, a live wire amidst an otherwise regal but seemingly stale backdrop. She defined the constraints of a rigid monarchy with a healthy dose of good humor, approachable charm, and a refusal to refine her untethered spirits for the sake of fitting in. Her infectious exuberance was the perfect counterpart to a more poised and polished Diana. Fergie, as we would come to know her, always looked like a woman ready for anything. Over the years, royal watchers observed the lives of these women. through the trenches of their successes and scandals, paying the closest attention to the glimpses of motherhood captured in photos of them escorting their children to school, together atop a mountaintop on winter ski vacations, and in glittering display for holiday gatherings. All these images encapsulated the golden era of celebrity, the duchess and the princesses side by side, smiling brightly on the palace balcony, wrangling their babies in wide-brimmed hats. After all these years, many women continue to admire the Duchess of York, though many now for different reasons. Her stoic elegance and composure in trying times has impressed women everywhere. She's never afraid to try new things at any age, and all of us respected how she made a dedicated effort to rekindle her relationship with the Queen after her marriage had fallen apart. Decades later, she would be the one to walk with the Queen through the gardens every morning during those last years of her life. Loyalty rooted in continued effort. Let's take a look at some of those 20 questions.
Ginger root and grate it really strongly the night before, and then I drink it with hot water. My morning ritual is to get up and have that wonderful shot to my liver and system to say, wake up world, here we are. Was about 2 hours ago. I write a lot of letters, fountain pen, and I love to write letters. I love the way the Americans really give you confidence and realize it's okay just to be yourself. I love America. I'm an Anglo-American and I love to be part of the American people. I never leave the house without my Sharpie pen, many different colored Sharpie pens, and of course my mobile telephone, and of course my picnic, which in my picnic I always have tangerines, because you never know when you might need a little lift, and instead of reaching for sweets, you can reach for tangerine. It's just be yourself, be real, be on. I love her and I miss her, and I'm still, and of course that lovely line I write about Lady Mary, about the stiff upper lip and actually penetrating the stiff upper lip syndrome and going into real, not trying always to be something you're not. So yes, every minute of my day is about learning to be a better person within myself.
Now, the heat of the summer saw yet another grotesque child of the Me Too movement, having us ask questions we never needed to ask, like, is Jonah Hill the abusive actor who needs to be canceled? Casting couches, threats, and rape have apparently been replaced by awkward dates and weird dating dynamics in what is left of the Me Too movement. So here with me now to talk about the Me Too movement and Jonah Hill and cancel culture is Matt Belinsky. He's a dear friend of mine. We go years back. But most importantly, he is a media attorney. He's an independent journalist, and he hosts a podcast called The Prevailing Narrative. He's also, he says what is on his mind, and he tends to piss off a lot of liberals, and that's why I love him. Matt, give me your 2 cents on this.
So the Jonah Hill incident is kind of reflective of a couple unfortunate dynamics that have really been present in recent eras. One is kind of the publicization of private affairs, right? Taking things that by any reasonable estimation should be resolved amongst people on a person-to-person level and trying to rise them to the level of public controversy. Now, one of the things that has animated a lot of the publicization of private affairs is what I like to call the inflation of victimhood currency.
Right.
That victimhood is celebrated, that the social currency you get from posing as a victim has gone up over prior years. And that's the type of thing that animated people like Jonah Hill's girlfriend in trying to publicize what, by any estimation, a totally private incident. Now, what is reason for some optimism is that this seems to have fizzled out, that the hysteria, the energy around these types of cause celebs and controversies of trying to ruin someone's life or livelihood by showing, that they may have been a bit of a jerk in a private affair. It fell flat this time. A lot of people looked at this and said, wait a second, I wouldn't have acted like Jonah did. These are not the boundaries that I would draw in a romantic relationship, but this is the type of thing that she really should have kept private. And she was really just doing this for her own emotional satisfaction.
Matt, I love it. Really quickly, can you just predict to me the future of cancel culture and how you feel about it?
Absolutely. I think this is a good barometer. I definitely think, once again, the energy around the hysterias that drove so much craziness from, let's call it 2015 to around 2021, 2022, some of it certainly has fizzled out. And there's, in a couple different avenues, the reaction has been different, right? It's been more public in terms of DEI and what's going on in college campuses, that people are literally very expressly saying, okay, what's been going on the last few years is not right. I can't believe, people like Bill Ackman saying, I cannot believe that I was indulging this, that I was enabling the craziness going on in the DEI bureaucracy in college campuses. But on the Me Too side, it seems like everyone's just kind of hint, hint, wink, wink. Okay, right. We know we were being hysterical. We know that this train went off the tracks 2017, 18, the years after the Harvey Weinstein incident. But now I think that trying to, the idea that someone can just go and make any accusation against a person in a disfavored category, like a white male, or make any accusation of abuse, that it's just going to be accepted like that. I don't think that's the case anymore. I think these things are going to be held up to a lot more public scrutiny, and the bar for a public controversy or cancellation is going to be a lot higher going forward.
Love it. And I love your perspective. Happy New Year, Matt. If the COVID pandemic taught us anything, it's that you have to take control of your own family's health. You can't rely on the government or big pharma. And that's why many of you count on Z-Stack. Did you know there is a special formulated version of Z-Stack made for people who took the vaccine? It's called Z-Detox. Z-Detox contains vitamin D, vitamin C, zinc, NAC, and ECGC. Dr. Zelensko's Z-Detox formula was especially created for individuals with weakened immune systems, especially those weakened by the COVID-19 vaccines and boosters. As most of you know, Dr. Vladimir Zelenko was the world-renowned doctor that President Trump credited with his successful early treatment protocol and his decision to take hydroxychloroquine. If you were forced to take the vaccine, if you have friends or family members who took the vaccine, order Z-Detox today and help your immune system fight back. Supercharge your immune system. Go to zstacklife.com/house and order today. And use promo code HOUSE to save an additional 15%. Almost 300 years ago, Benjamin Franklin famously said that nothing in this world is certain except for death and taxes. Well, it's clear the Bens of America didn't include Hollywood, because in addition to death and taxes, another near certainty in this world is messy Hollywood breakups. Brian Austin Green, who has dated some of the most beautiful women in Hollywood, might never win an award for acting, but if there was an award for worst dad in Hollywood, the former 90210 star would certainly be in the running. After years in the attention wilderness, Brian Austin Green was suddenly back in the news in October. Green rattled headlines when he appeared on his new podcast, Oldish, hosted on iHeartRadio with co-host Randy Spelling and his fiancée, Sharna Burgess. They discussed co-parenting with his two Hollywood exes, Megan Fox and Vanessa Marcil. In the episode, he spoke candidly about his experience with both of his former partners, admittedly without asking either of them for permission to discuss the personal details of their situations on air. Afterward, Brian said he reached out to Megan Fox to inform her about the discussion, but seemingly left Vanessa entirely out of the loop. In the podcast, Green compared the differences in co-parenting with Megan and Vanessa. While he spoke highly of Megan, he painted Vanessa out to be this more difficult ex, spending several minutes denying her social media claims that he had cut ties with his son, essentially blaming her for the separation by telling his audience that he was too ill to see his oldest son during those 5 years.
Two very different experiences of co-parenting.
I do. It is my goal, and I think it's her goal as well, that the kids are in as healthy an environment as they can be in. I've really come to the understanding and the realization within the last 5 years. I think people do a huge disservice in thinking that they don't want a separation or a divorce or whatever it may be to affect their kids. because it will. It will absolutely affect your kids. The part of it that you have control over is how it affects your kids.
Blending into this family was one of the easiest things that I've ever done. When it came into stepping into co-parenting, remember when before I'd met Megan, when I saw her at the restaurant? I was at a girls' dinner at a restaurant at Catch, LA, and suddenly Megan and Colson walk in. For a brief second, we connected. Our eyes passed each other. I left there thinking, I think it's time I reach out to her. I said, hey, Megan, it's Shana Burgess I'm dating, right? I'm around your kids all the time and they're beautiful and wonderful, but if you would ever like to meet me, get to know me or know more about me, please just let me know. I think she really appreciated that, starting off with openness and saying, hey, I'm here if there's anything you want to know about me. Sometimes in ugly divorces and ugly breakups, the parents can maybe consciously or, not so consciously use the kids to punish or bait the other parent. When I was little, who do you love more? He would ask me who I wanted to live with. He would tell me that my mummy was the reason my daddy couldn't be around. These things stuck with me. I sort of started to take things on myself of trying to fix them. Therefore, the rest of my life, trying to fix relationships, fix people, fix things instead of myself.
Unfortunately for Brian, Jessica had more of the details about Brian and his relationship with his son and Vanessa. Sources close to the families revealed that Green's firstborn immediately reached out to his father, Brian, after hearing the Oldish podcast, calling him out for, quote, lying about his mother and his childhood, end quote. Brian allegedly remained quiet on the call, even though the son doesn't know Brian's fiance. Well, he reached out to her as well with a text message saying, not to talk about my mom and my childhood again publicly. You weren't there. Allegedly, the fiance replied to Brian's oldest son with a long-winded apology, blaming herself for putting Brian on the spot about the co-parenting topic. Sources allege that Brian has not spoken to his eldest son since the call. Sources claim that Brian's latest excuse about an intense case of vertigo is news to Vanessa. During these 5 years, Brian gave birth to 2 other children and was spotted with paparazzi photos in Hawaii each year. Now, according to sources Jessica spoke to, Brian cut ties for 5 years with his eldest son and never informed Vanessa of any illness he was dealing with. In his absence, his oldest son was left wondering why his dad disappeared and abandoned him without any explanation. In one conversation, a source revealed that his oldest son had spent the night at his dad's house for the very last time when he was only 11 years old. On that occasion, they recall that Brian texted Vanessa in the middle of the night to come pick him up, and he never spent another night with him again during that period. Now, while Brian had 50% custody, he reportedly only saw his oldest son a handful of times during those 5 years and never made an effort to establish visits on a regular basis. Sources saying his new excuse said it would be impossible for this story to check out, considering Brian could have legally sent someone to the house to pick up his son if and when he wanted to see him, as Brian had 50% legal and physical custody of his oldest son per their 2008 court order, and they followed a 2-2-5 custodial schedule. Brian learned a hard lesson this year, one that Hollywood D-listers longing for the limelight should always remember. Be careful what you ask for. You might just get the attention you want, just not in the way you want it.
I'm only one call away. What I would do to see your face.
As 2023 began to draw to a close, more and more attention turned to 2024 and what may go down as one of the wildest and most craziest elections of our lifetime. One of the reasons that the 2024 presidential election promises to be wild outside of the presence of Donald Trump is that for the first time since Ross Perot launched his campaign for president as an independent on Larry King's show back in 1992, an independent candidate will have a very serious impact on deciding who will be the next president. Robert F. Kennedy Jr.'s campaign harnesses two incredibly powerful forces. One that overwhelmingly wants to do nothing with the Biden versus Trump sequel, and a family name that brings political cachet and a nostalgia for a world we either lost or never had. In November, Jessica traveled to the iconic Kennedy compound in Massachusetts. Her reports from the compound gave millions of Americans a rare glimpse into one of the country's most iconic homes and an intimate look into who RFK Jr. is and what motivates him. We don't have royals here in the U.S. Indeed, our nation's very existence is not having royals. Having said that, the Kennedys are as close as we will ever get to royals. As Jessica so eloquently explained, quote, "There has never been a point in my life where I wasn't aware of the Kennedy namesake or legacy. No, I was not alive to see or digest the horrors of the JFK assassination, but the way my mother spoke about it, in repeated waves of shock and sorrow, it made it hard to forget. Like most women her age, she was enthralled with the layer of allure of Camelot. Idolized glamour, upstaged by tragic subplots, was fodder for the preferred fairy tales of my youth. From a young age, I was well versed in the most dramatic aspects of this sprawling saga. John Kennedy was a civil rights hero. After he was shot, Jackie refused to change out of a blood-soaked pink Chanel suit because she wanted Americans to see what they had done. The country mourned him on a colossal level. His murder shattered the dreams of a whole generation. When his casket passed by, John stepped forward in a powder blue coat to salute his father like he'd been taught. And all the mothers in America wept. I memorized these faded tales with emotional intensity. My mother adored Jack and Bobby and Jackie and Ethel. When their husbands were killed, she grieved hard for them. Strong women overcoming unexpected horrors was understandably appealing to her." End quote. Joining us now to talk about Bobby Kennedy and his campaign for president is Kevin Jenkins. Jenkins is a longtime leader in the health and wellness space and a dear friend of Bobby Kennedy. Welcome.
Thank you very much, Brittany.
Happy New Year to you.
Same to you. How was your Christmas?
It was amazing. It was amazing. And, you know, as we're heading into 2024, obviously everyone's talking about the big elections. I mean, why do you think Kennedy here has captivated so many people? I mean, he has really, really got a good chance here.
Oh, of course. I think that people are tuning into him because he's the truth candidate. You know, look, over the last 3 years, over the last several decades, he's been out there on an uncomfortable side of all of the issues that are affecting Americans. And I think running for president was a perfect segue for him. He stood up for children. He stood up against censorship. He stood up for the rights of every citizen in this country. And I think that because of him sacrificing himself, because that's what he did, he didn't have to run for president. He could have kept the station of being a Kennedy and do anything he wanted to do. He stepped out on truth and he started to work every day to protect every child in this country against a tyrannical group of people we call Big Pharma or the globalists. We can go down the line of what we want to call them. There's so many names for them now. But I think what Bobby Kennedy is doing is going back out there and doing what he does best, telling Americans the truth. And I admire that. And that's one of the reasons why I support him. And that's one of the reasons why I think majority of the country is taking not just the first look at him, but the second look at him. And I think all of our communities, I mean, no matter where you live in this country, you have to appreciate what he's done. I mean, he's put his name on the line. He's been attacked in a line like all of us have. You know, he's on the disinformation 12 list like I am. I've joined him there couple of years ago. So it's about telling the Americans the truth. It's about standing up against the tyranny of our time. It's about giving hope back to all of Americans. It's about really having a deep conversation about what the deep state has planned for us. And if we don't have anybody in the White House like him that's going to stand up against these people or stand up against these organizations or stand up against these super wealthy people that believe that they can rewrite the DNA of what this country is about faith, family, and freedom, we're going to be in trouble. So I think every American needs to really look at this next political season with a different lens. It's not about your party you belong to. It's not about that. It's about, do you believe you're a part of the American First Party or the Globalist Party? You can be a Democrat, you could be a Republican, you could be an independent, you could be a libertarian and still support the globalist agenda. But if you are American first, we are working on trying to restore our constitutional republic and bring us back to balance so we can all live in this country and prosper based on what all of the founding fathers and all of the people that have sacrificed their selves to keep this country and keep this nation solid and on a right track. I think we got to get back to the basics of what this country is about.
Right, right. And I think that what it's about is in question, wouldn't you say? But I do
Yes,
think that
absolutely.
a lot of people, a lot of Americans resonate with Bobby so much because he is fighting Big Pharma, which is a huge topic of discussion in terms of, you know, greed, and both sides, Republicans and Democrats, tend to kind of fall under that umbrella. And yet Bobby has his gloves on. He's really fighting this, and it's a fight, wouldn't you say?
But he's not a one-dimensional candidate. I want people to understand.
Right.
Big Pharma was just a second tier of his fight. What about the environmental work at the local level that he was doing to really talk about the environmental impact on kids' health in America, the environmental impact on our waterways in America, like really local environmental issues, not this other stuff, you know, this green campaign to really put us and trap us into slavery. I think that he is not one-dimensional. He's able to have deep conversations, even if you don't agree with him on some issues. He's willing to have a conversation. He's willing to work through some of the most important issues of our time. So, you know, when we connect him to Big Pharma, we make him one-dimensional. He's about really saving America and really preserving our constitutional republic. And he's willing to talk to every community. And the Black community now, he's being responded to well. He has a great dynamic young man named Jamel Holly that, you know, I call him my youngest son. He's an elected official in New Jersey for decades, and he's doing a super job trying to tie that relationship to Bobby Kennedy and the Black community. And the Black community is stepping away from the Democratic Party in a big way. You know, I tell people in the country, there's only two candidates running for president right now. And people say, well, who are those people? I said, it's Donald Trump and it's Bobby Kennedy. Bobby Kennedy is only running as an independent because the Democratic Party is too corrupt, and they believe in censorship. They believe in fascism. They believe in communism. They believe of stripping all of Americans of our rights, our natural born rights, our human rights. I said, so Bobby didn't have a choice but to run as an independent. So I'm telling all of the Democrats, don't get caught up in that. Get caught up in the fact that he's really a Democrat running as an independent, and we should be throwing our support behind him.
Well, the Democratic Party, in my opinion, isn't what it used to be either. We're seeing a complete shift of them going down a far left rabbit hole that is just not what it used to be. And I will say with Bobby, the appeal with him, in my opinion, is that there's a genuineness, there's a realness that I think we have lacked on both sides, the Democratic Party and the Republican Party. So perhaps that's why so many people resonate with him. But my question to you, my final question to you, is what do you think of the possibility of a Trump-Bobby ticket together?
Well, people always ask me that, and I don't see the potentiality of that. But I do say they already are a ticket. They are a ticket. We need to look at this differently from a different political lens. They're both basically fighting against the same system, fighting against the same group of people, fighting against the corporatocracy, fighting against the managerial class, fighting against the globalists. So think about that for a second. You have two people that were on the inside that's been ostracized. Now they're on the outside, and they're the leading candidates to run this country and for the rest of the 21st century. So we have some very serious issues in front of us. So I want people to understand that both of these candidates, basically from a political perspective, I've been in politics all my life, we're blessed to have both of them having this deep conversation about how to preserve our constitutional republic. So Bobby, you know, and Trump, both of them are fighting against the same evil tyranny that Malcolm fought against, that Martin fought against, that some of even our founding fathers fought against that tyranny, right? So, you know, you have to give them credit. And when people say, what a perfect ticket, well, they are a perfect ticket. So my friends laugh. They say, Kev, we never thought about it that way. I said, because you're looking at politics from a very myopic perspective. I think both of them are doing a great thing by putting their lives and their wealth and their families on the line to preserve this great country we live in.
Well, look, and regardless of how you feel politically, he is definitely waking some people up, making them think differently. So I value that. I thank you for being here. 2024 is going to be a huge year, so Happy New Year. And this presidential election is going to be amazing in 2024. I'm sure we'll see you again soon. Absolutely.
Hope to see you soon.
Take care, Kevin.